At a family barbecue, her uncle asked when she'd finally settled down. She snorted and replied loudly, "With him? Please." The laughter stopped when I said, "You're right," handed her aunt my plate, and left without another word. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. And if you have your own story to share, send it to me. My contact info is in the description below. I'd love to feature it in an upcoming video. Thanks. The smell of charcoal and searing burgers was the smell of summer. For 3 years, it was also the smell of family. Chloe's family, to be exact. The Fergusons. I knew the warp of their deck boards, the sticky latch on the screen door, and exactly how long to let Uncle Rob rant about the neighbor's lawn before handing him another beer. I was at the grill with him now, a stained apron over my t-shirt, turning chicken breasts while he expounded on the virtues of indirect heat. "See, Alex, you crowd him all in the center, you're just boiling him in their own juice. Gotta give him space. Like people. Wisdom for the ages, Rob," I said, smiling, shifting the pieces to the cooler side of the grate. I'd brought my own potato salad, a recipe from my mom that involved dill and just the right amount of vinegar. Aunt Susan had practically hugged me for it when I arrived. "A man who cooks. You're a keeper, Alex." She'd said it 100 times. From the patio, laughter erupted. Chloe was holding court with her cousins, Megan and Liv. She was gesturing broadly, recounting some story from her marketing office. She caught my eye and gave a quick, perfunctory smile before turning back. She looked vibrant, her hair catching the late afternoon sun. I felt a familiar, comfortable warmth. This was my life. It was good. Later, bellies full, the gathering settled into a contented hum. I was collecting empty plates, stacking them by the kitchen door. Uncle Rob, his face flushed with Merlot and sunshine, slapped a heavy, friendly hand on my shoulder, pulling me into the circle where Chloe lounged on a patio chair. "So," he boomed, his voice cutting through the chatter. "Serious question for you two." He wagged a finger between me and Chloe. "When's our Chloe finally gonna make an honest man out of you, Alex?" We're not getting any younger. Time to settle down, plant some roots." It was the same joke he'd made for 2 years. Usually, Chloe would roll her eyes playfully and say, "Don't rush us, Uncle Rob." I'd shuffle my feet and grin. A comfortable routine. But not today. Chloe didn't roll her eyes. She let out a sound, a sharp, derisive snort that silenced the conversation on the patio. Megan's laugh died in her throat. "With him? Please, Uncle Rob." The words weren't whispered. They were projected, clear and crisp, for the entire backyard to hear. The world didn't narrow. It became horrifyingly high definition. I saw the sprinkle of freckles on Aunt Susan's frozen face. I saw the bottle of IPA suspended in Rob's hand, halfway to his mouth. I saw Liv wince and look down at her lap. Chloe leaned forward, as if sharing a juicy secret with an audience of 50. Settle is the right word. "God." She shook her head, a smirk playing on her lips. "I'm not ready to sign up for a life of this." Her gesture was a lazy, all-encompassing wave that took in the grill, the faded deck furniture, the suburbs stretching beyond the fence. It took in me. My heart wasn't pounding. It felt like it had stopped entirely, a cold, dead stone in my chest. "Alex is great," she continued, her tone now one of patronizing clarification. "He's sweet. He's, like, unbelievably nice. But come on." She looked at her cousins, seeking complicity. "He's my for now. Everyone knows that. Right, Meg?" Megan turned the color of beetroot, mumbling something unintelligible. The silence was a physical weight. It was the absence of everything, of birds, of traffic, of breath. All that existed was Chloe's casual, breathtaking cruelty hanging in the air between us. She wasn't being malicious. That was the worst part. She was just stating what she believed was an obvious, accepted fact. I was a placeholder, a temporary comfort, a prop in her life's waiting room. I looked at her face. I searched for regret, for a hint that this was a joke gone too far. I saw only a feigned impatience, like I was ruining the punchline by not laughing along. A deep, unnatural calm settled over me. It was the quiet of a decision being made at a fundamental level. I walked, my steps measured and soundless on the decking, over to Aunt Susan. Her eyes were wide, glistening with unshed tears of shock and empathy. I held out my paper plate, with its half-eaten burger and uneaten scoop of my own potato salad. Thanks for lunch, Susan, I said, my voice even, polite, as if I were thanking a hostess after a lovely dinner party. It was delicious. She took the plate automatically, her mouth a soft O of distress. I then turned. I walked the 3 steps to stand directly in front of Chloe's chair. She looked up, her smirk fading into a flicker of confusion at my expression, which held no anger, no hurt she could recognize. I made sure my voice carried the same clear, projected weight hers had. You're right, I said, nodding slowly. The words weren't bitter. They were factual, final. You're absolutely right. I didn't look at Rob. I didn't look at the cousins. I turned on my heel and walked across the deck, down the 3 steps to the lawn, and along the side of the house. My car was out front. Behind me, I heard a single, strangled Alex from Susan and a sharper, "Oh, for God's sake," from Chloe. I didn't run. I didn't slam the garden gate. I closed it with a gentle, definitive click that echoed in the silent aftermath I left behind. The sound of a page turning, of a door closing, of a man walking out of a story he was never meant to be the lead in. The drive home was conducted in a void. There was no roaring soundtrack of anger in my head, no choked-back tears. There was only the hum of the engine and the precise, clinical feeling of disassembly. It was as if the person who had been publicly dismantled at that barbecue, Alex, the boyfriend, the reliable grill mate, the future son-in-law, was still back there, a shell on the Ferguson's patio. The man driving the car was someone new, someone empty, and therefore perfectly clear. My phone, resting in the cup holder, began to vibrate. A photo of Chloe, smiling mid-laugh from a hiking trip last fall, flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. It buzzed again, and again. By the 3rd call, I reached over, and without looking, powered it off. The silence that followed was profound. My apartment felt like a museum dedicated to a relationship that had just been revealed as a fiction. The framed photo on the bookshelf from her sister's wedding, me in an awkward suit, her beaming. The ridiculous, overpriced candle she loved that smelled of rain-drenched peonies. The coffee mug with an inside joke printed on it that wasn't funny anymore. I didn't smash anything. I didn't cry. I opened my laptop and created a new document. The title, Exit Strategy. The first step was logistical. I boxed up everything that was hers or that explicitly reminded me of her. The candle, the mug, a sweater she'd left, the photos. I didn't rage pack. I folded, wrapped, and labeled with the detached efficiency of a museum archivist storing a failed exhibit. The box went into the storage closet. Out of sight, but not yet out of mind. That would take a different kind of work. I powered my phone back on. The notification flood was almost impressive. Chloe, 5:42 p.m. What the hell was that? You just left. You made a huge scene. Chloe, 5:55 p.m. My mom is crying. My uncle feels terrible. Way to make everyone uncomfortable over a joke. Chloe, 6:20 p.m. Are you really not going to answer me? This is so immature. Chloe, 7:05 p.m. Alex. Call me. We need to talk. Chloe, 8:30 p.m. Fine. Be a child. You know I didn't mean it like that. I read them with the curiosity of an anthropologist studying a foreign culture. The primary emotion conveyed wasn't remorse, it was annoyance. Annoyance that I had disrupted the narrative, that I had refused to play my role as the understanding, unflappable boyfriend who would shrug off a joke at his expense for the sake of harmony. The subtext of every message was, "You are overreacting. Get back in line." I didn't block her. Not yet. The messages were data. They were the final, irrefutable evidence I hadn't allowed myself to see before. As night fell, the data morphed. Chloe, 10:15 p.m. Okay. I'm sorry you got your feelings hurt. But you have to understand how Rob puts me on the spot. I had to say something. Chloe, 11:02 p.m. Can we please just talk? This is stupid. The sorry you got your feelings hurt was a masterpiece. An apology that placed the fault on my sensitivity, not her cruelty. I put the phone face down. In the dark, silent apartment, the flashbacks came. Not the curated highlights reel, but the outtakes. Me, canceling a weekend fishing trip with my brother to help her paint her apartment because she'd just get overwhelmed doing it alone. Me, spending 3 evenings and a small fortune on parts to fix the persistent rattle in her car, her gratitude lasting approximately until the next time she needed a ride. Me, sitting through endless dinners with her work friends, listening to them talk about influencers and market saturation, my practical job in data management, a gentle, unspoken punchline. Each memory clicked into place like a piece of damning evidence. My loyalty, my support, my quiet presence, they weren't valued. They were expected. They were the baseline services provided by the help. And the help isn't supposed to have feelings or pride or walk out. The next morning, a new tactic. Chloe, 9:17 a.m., I'm coming over. We're talking about this. I didn't reply. At 9:45, my doorbell rang. 3 long, insistent presses. I sat at my kitchen table, drinking coffee, reading the news on my tablet. I heard the faint jingle of her keys. She still had a set in the lock. The knob turned, but the deadbolt, which I had engaged, held fast. A pause, then a sharp knock. Alex, open the door. I know you're in there. I took a slow sip of coffee. The silence was my answer. This is ridiculous. Her voice was muffled but clear through the wood. You're being so dramatic. Open the door right now. More silence. I heard a frustrated sigh, then the sound of her keys being shoved back into a purse. Fine. Whatever. When you decide to be an adult, you know where to find me. Her footsteps receded down the hallway. The clinical feeling within me solidified. Her anger at being locked out confirmed everything. She wasn't here to apologize. She was here to regain control, to scold me back into my box. That afternoon, I initiated the protocol. I changed the Wi-Fi password. I removed her profile from my streaming accounts. I withdrew the small amount of money I kept in our shared date night savings pot, money I had exclusively funded. Methodical, administrative tasks. Her text shifted again, a hint of unease seeping through the annoyance. Chloe, 4:11 p.m., did you change the Netflix password? Chloe, 7:30 p.m., my mom asked about you. I didn't know what to say. Chloe, 10:05 p.m., Alex. Seriously, this isn't you. Talk to me. This isn't you. That was the truest thing she'd said in days. The me she knew was gone. On Monday, I called in sick to work. Not because I was emotionally distraught, but because I had more important things to do. I went for a long, punishing run. I cleaned my apartment until it shone, erasing the last traces of shared life. In the evening, I did something I hadn't done in 2 years. I called my old friend Mark from my pre-Chloe life, the one she'd found kind of a bro. Dude, he answered. I was starting to think you'd been abducted by aliens, or, worse, your girlfriend's book club. Something like that, I said. You free for a beer this week? That night, the final message of Phase 1 arrived. Chloe, 11:48 p.m., I can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe you're just throwing everything away over one stupid comment. I guess it just shows how fragile this all was. I hope you're happy. It was the masterpiece. The ultimate reversal. She was the victim of my unreasonable actions. She was the one being abandoned. The sheer audacity of it was almost impressive. It was also the final piece of data I needed. I picked up the phone. I navigated to her contact. I didn't block her. Instead, I changed her name in my contacts from Chloe Red Heart to Ferguson C. Then I muted the conversation and set my phone to do not disturb. The radio silence wasn't a tactic. It wasn't a game to win her back. It was the sound of a man walking away from a conversation that had ended long before he'd finally listened. The silence was no longer empty. It was full of potential. And for the first time in a long time, it belonged entirely to me. Weeks bled into a month, then 2. The world, which had narrowed to the pinpoint of that backyard humiliation, slowly widened again. The silence I'd cultivated wasn't just an absence of her, it was space. And in that space, I began to build. Ferguson C. remained muted. The messages still came, but I'd configured my phone to file them directly into a digital archive without notification. I checked it once a week, on Sunday evenings, with the detached interest of a historian reviewing primary sources. The tone cycled through predictable phases: indignation, bargaining, guilt-tripping, and finally, a simmering, confused silence that lasted for a full 3-week stretch. My energy went elsewhere. I accepted the promotion at work I'd been hesitant to take because it required more travel. Travel Chloe had called a flaky excuse to avoid real life. I signed up for the advanced data analytics certification I'd bookmarked a year ago. I rebuilt the engine on my old Jeep with Mark, our hands greasy, Conversations revolving around carburetors and baseball, not relationship drama. It was profoundly simple. The first ripple of karma arrived via Megan, Chloe's cousin. She'd always been the quietest of the three, and the only one who hadn't forced a smile during the barbecue performance. A text popped up one Tuesday evening. Megan, 7:03 p.m. Hey Alex. I know this is weird. I just wanted to say I'm really sorry about what happened at the barbecue. It was awful. You didn't deserve that. I hope you're okay. It was a decency grenade lobbed into my new piece. I weighed my response for an hour. Me, 8:15 p.m. Thanks, Megan. I appreciate that. I'm doing well. Her typing bubbles appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Megan, 8:17 p.m. Good. That's good. I felt like I should say something. Things have been weird. I didn't ask. The rule was firm. No fishing for information, no expressing curiosity about her well-being. But Megan offered it freely, a confession tinged with her own guilt. Megan, 8:19 p.m. She's seeing someone new. Some guy named Derek. He's a creative director. Met him like a week after anyway. He's all she talks about. He's so intense and so passionate and totally different from, well, you know, a week after. The timeline was both shocking and utterly predictable. I felt nothing. Not jealousy, not hurt. Just a clinical confirmation. The placeholder had been removed. A new, shinier prop was slotted into place. Me, 8:22 p.m. I see. I hope it works out for her. Megan's final message was telling. Yeah, we'll see. Take care, Alex. The "we'll see" hung in the air. It was the first crack in the family's united front. Aunt Susan, according to a later, carefully vague text from Megan, had refused to meet Derek. Mom says she has a headache every time Chloe suggests it. The next update was visual. I'd deleted my social media, but Mark hadn't. He came over one night, scrolling on his phone, and let out a low whistle. Whoa, check out the rebound. He showed me a picture Chloe had posted. It was at some rooftop bar. She was draped against a man in a too-tight designer shirt, his hair meticulously tousled, his smile revealing very white, very straight teeth. Derek. His arm gripped her waist possessively. The caption, when you stop settling for fine and finally find fire. Fire hashtag upgrade hashtag no regrets. The hashtag was a bullet aimed directly at the ghost of me. Mark glanced at my face. You good, man? I'm great, I said, and meant it. The photo didn't hurt. It was anthropological. Here was the specimen she'd traded for. He looked exactly like the kind of man who would call himself a disruptor and lecture waiters about the provenance of the basil. It was perfect. Looks like a tool, Mark grunted, putting his phone away. He's her problem now, I said, handing him a beer. The true unraveling began a few months later. The reports from Megan became less frequent, but more substantive. They were no longer just updates. They were dispatches from a collapsing front. Megan, 11:12 a.m. Derek lost his job. Apparently, he pivoted out of his company after a creative disagreement with the founders. Chloe says he's focusing on his personal brand now. Megan, 3 weeks later, Chloe asked to borrow money from Mom. For rent. Derek's brand-building phase is apparently cash-intensive. Mom said no. It was a whole thing. Then, the tone shifted from observational to concerned. Megan, 9:45 p.m. Have you talked to Chloe at all? She seems really on edge. Liv said Derek showed up at her work unannounced last week and made a scene because some guy was talking to her. It was weird. I didn't reply. The fire was showing its first sparks of being uncontrolled. The climax came not from Megan, but from an entirely unexpected source, Rob. His name flashing on my screen one Saturday morning was a surreal throwback to a past life. I answered, my voice neutral. Rob. Alex. He sounded tired, older. Listen, I don't even know how to start. What Chloe said at the barbecue. It was, Susan hasn't spoken to her properly in weeks. I haven't either. It was cruel, plain and simple, and I'm sorry I was the idiot that started it. It's not your fault, Rob, I said, and I meant that too. He was a catalyst, not the cause. You asked an honest question. She gave an honest answer. It was the honesty that was the problem. He was quiet for a moment, absorbing that. Yeah, I guess it was. He cleared his throat. I'm not calling just to apologize. I'm calling. Hell, I'm calling to warn you, maybe. Warn me. She's in a bad way, Alex. This Derek fella. Rob's voice dropped, thick with disgust. He's bad news. Got a temper on him. Borrowed my power washer last month and returned it with the pump burned out, then told me I must have given him a faulty machine. Cheeky bastard. But with Chloe it's more. She's jumpy. She looks thin. She dropped her phone last week when we had them over for a minute, and he snatched it up off the floor before she could, laughing like it was a game. Didn't look like a game to me. I listened, saying nothing. The image was clear and ugly. The reason I'm telling you, Rob continued, his voice strained, is she's talking about moving in with him, to a place he can't afford. And I have a feeling when this goes south, and it will, she's gonna come running back to you, looking for her old, for now guy to clean up the mess. Susan's worried sick about it. I looked out my apartment window at the clean, calm morning. I had a gym session booked. I was meeting a colleague later to discuss a new project. My life was orderly, peaceful, and mine. Rob, I said, my voice firm but not unkind. I appreciate the call. And I'm sorry Chloe's in a difficult situation. But I'm not a fallback plan. I'm not a cleanup crew. That chapter is closed. Permanently. A long sigh of what sounded like both regret and relief came down the line. I figured you'd say that. And I don't blame you one damn bit. I had to try. For Susan's sake. Tell Susan I said hello, and that I still think about her potato salad. I said, a small, genuine smile touching my lips. It was the only piece of that old life I cared to acknowledge. I hung up. I sat for a moment, the final piece of the karma puzzle slotting into place. Her upgrade was volatile, unemployed, and showing signs of being controlling. Her family, her source of unwavering support, was pulling back, their loyalty eroded by her own actions and their distaste for the consequences she'd chosen. She was isolated, making desperate decisions. I felt no schadenfreude. No triumphant, I told you so. The feeling was simpler, more profound. It was the confirmation of a correct calculation. I had been assessed as a liability. I had removed myself from the ledger. Now, the asset she'd chosen was actively depreciating, taking her value down with it. The unraveling wasn't my drama to watch. It was a weather report from a country I'd left. The forecast was storms. I was grateful, every single day, that I'd built my house on firmer ground. The first new message from Ferguson C. appeared exactly as Rob had predicted, 2 days after Derek's name was officially on her lease. It bypassed the mute function because it came from a new, unknown number. Unknown, 10:23 p.m. Alex. It's Chloe. I know you're getting these. I need to talk. It's important. The tone was different. No accusation, no performative anger. It was flat, almost hollow. I deleted it. The following evening, a voicemail. I listened while prepping dinner, knife steady on a carrot. Her voice was a shaky recording, stripped of its usual confident melody. Hey, it's me. God, this is hard. A long pause, a shaky inhale. I keep thinking about your potato salad. How you'd always use way too much dill because you knew I loved it. Stupid, right? I miss my friend. I miss talking to you. Things are complicated. I think I made a huge mistake. Not just at the barbecue. A series of them. Can you please just call me back? Please. I have no one else to talk to. The manipulation was more sophisticated now. Not a demand, but a confession. Not an attack, but a shared nostalgia she'd once mocked. She was playing the real connection card. I deleted the voicemail. The texts resumed, a slow, persistent drip from the new number. Unknown. 8:15 a.m. Remember that little diner with the pie? We could go there. Just talk. Unknown. 3:41 p.m. I drove past your old running trail today. I looked for you. Unknown. 11:08 p.m. I told Derek about us. About how I ended it. He thinks I'm hung up on you. We had a fight. That last one was a masterstroke. Designed to elicit a protective instinct, or perhaps jealousy. It did neither. It was just another data point. Her new relationship was fracturing, and she was using my ghost as a wedge. I blocked the new number. A week of silence. Then, the flying monkey. Not Megan this time, but Liv, the cousin who had looked at her lap. Her call went to voicemail. Alex, hi, it's Liv. Listen, I'm calling because I'm worried about Chloe. She's really not in a good place. This guy Derek, he's not good. She won't admit it, but we can all see it. She's lost a lot of weight. She's just so sad. And I know what she did was horrible, but she's punishing herself enough. Maybe if you just met her for coffee? Not to get back together, She needs to hear she's not a monster from someone from you. Just think about it. Liv was a gentler negotiator, appealing to mercy. I didn't think about it. The request itself was an insult. My job was now to absolve her of her own consequences. The escalation came on a rainy Thursday. I was leaving my new gym, a better one, downtown, when I saw her leaning against the brick wall under the awning, collar turned up against the drizzle. She looked like a faded photocopy of the woman at the barbecue. Thinner, as Liv had said, her eyes darting, her posture defensive. Alex. She pushed off the wall, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I figured you'd be here. Mark mentioned you liked this place. So, she was mining my friends for intel. I didn't stop walking, adjusting the strap of my gym bag. Chloe. She fell into step beside me, her steps quick and nervous. I needed to see you. To talk. In person. The texts, the calls, you're just shutting me out. Yes, I said, continuing toward the parking garage. Why are you being like this? Her voice cracked, the facade crumbling faster than I'd anticipated. I said I was sorry. I made a mistake. A huge, awful, stupid mistake. What more do you want? Do you want me to beg? People passing by glanced over, adding an audience she probably hadn't intended. I stopped and turned to face her. The fluorescent garage lights washed her out. I don't want anything, Chloe. That's the point. She blinked, confused by the grammar. You have to forgive me. You're the good one. The understanding one. That's who you are. That was who I was with you. I corrected. It was a role. One you made abundantly clear was temporary and unvalued. I've recast the part. Tears, real ones this time, spilled over. It wasn't a role. It was you. The real you. And I'm drowning, Alex. Derek. He's not who I thought. He screams. He broke my phone last week. He hasn't paid his half of the rent in 2 months. I'm scared and I'm alone and my family is judging me, and I need my best friend back. She reached for my arm. I took a subtle step back, avoiding the contact. I'm not your best friend. I was your placeholder. You stated that publicly. I'm just respecting your stated preference. The tears turned hot with a flash of the old anger. So that's it. After 3 years, you see me like this and you just feel nothing? You're just going to let me drown. I looked at her, this woman in genuine distress, and felt a distant, clinical pity, the kind you might feel for a reckless character in a movie. It wasn't connected to me. You're not drowning, Chloe. You're facing the consequences of swimming toward a ship you thought was a luxury liner. It was a leaky raft. That's unfortunate. But it's not my ocean. Her face contorted, the desperation finally boiling over into the rage that had been simmering beneath all the pleas. You're a cold bastard. You know that. I was right about you. You're just a boring, safe, heartless robot. I'm glad I didn't settle for you. You were never capable of real passion. I nodded, as if she'd offered a fair critique. You're probably right. Excuse me. I have a meeting. I turned and walked to my car. Her final shout echoed in the concrete cavern. Go to hell, Alex. I got in, started the engine, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw her sink onto a concrete barrier, head in her hands. It was the last image I would ever have of her. It was already fading. The wedding of Chloe's older cousin, Julia, was a year and 2 days after the barbecue. I'd always liked Julia. She'd sent me a kind, separate invitation a month prior, with a handwritten note. No pressure. But you'd be welcome. Truly. I decided to go. Not for closure, not for a victory lap, but because I genuinely wished Julia well, and because my attendance was a statement of my own normalcy. I was not a ghost hiding in shame. I was a guest. I brought Sarah, not a girlfriend, but a colleague from the new project team, sharp, funny, and happily married. She knew the whole story. My role is to be impeccably pleasant armor, she'd joked, and to eat cake. The reception was in a garden venue. I wore a simple navy suit. I felt calm. Sarah and I mingled easily, laughing with some of Julia's friends from college. I saw the Ferguson family across the lawn, a constellation I was no longer part of. Aunt Susan saw me first. Her face lit with a warm, sad smile, and she gave a small, respectful wave. I returned it. Uncle Rob offered a solid, approving nod. Megan smiled. Liv looked away. Chloe was there, sitting at a table alone. Derek was notably absent. She looked brittle in a too fancy dress, sipping champagne, her eyes tracking me like radar. I acknowledged her with the same faint, polite nod I'd given Susan, and turned back to my conversation. I felt it before I saw it, the approach. A presence at my elbow, radiating tense energy. Sarah excused herself smoothly to find more of those crab puffs. Alex. Chloe. I turned. My expression was the same one I used in boardrooms, attentive, neutral. You came. She sounded stunned. Julia is a lovely person. I was happy to celebrate with her. She searched my face for irony, for pain, for a crack. She found only a polite wall. You look good. Thank you. You look well. A harmless social lie. A strained silence. The band played a soft jazz standard. Derek and I were done. He moved out last week. Took the TV and my espresso machine. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, the automatic, empty phrase of a stranger, violating my own rule, but in a way that was utterly devoid of meaning. She flinched as if slapped by the indifference. I am too, but it's for the best. You were right. About everything. She took a step closer, her voice dropping to an intense whisper. I see you now. The man you became. This. She gestured vaguely at my suit, my posture, the space around me that felt calm. I did this. My mistake, it woke you up. It made you into this. This was her final, desperate narrative. That her betrayal was a painful but necessary gift. That she was the architect of my improvement. I took a slow sip of sparkling water. Chloe, you have a fundamental misunderstanding. She stared, waiting for the forgiveness, the acknowledgement of her twisted sacrifice. I didn't become this to win or to prove anything to you. I became this because the man who would stand there and tolerate what you said, who would consider it a joke or a mistake, that man had to die. You didn't make me. You unmade the version of me that was willing to be with you. What's left simply grew into the available space. Her lips trembled. But all of this, your job, your confidence, it's because I set you free. No, I said, my voice gentle but absolute. I'm free because I walked away from a prison I didn't know I was in. The scenery I've built since has nothing to do with the prison. It exists in a world where you are not a factor. You're a footnote in my past. A single, painful lesson I learned well and moved on from. So you don't feel anything? She whispered, her last hope dissolving. I feel gratitude for Julia's happiness today. I feel satisfied with my work. I feel peace when I go home. In relation to you, I feel nothing. Not hatred. That would require energy. I am, truly, indifferent. And for what happened, indifference is the only appropriate response. The finality of the word, indifferent, hit her like a physical blow. She swayed slightly. All her apologies, her tears, her rage, her desperation, they were waves crashing against a shore that no longer existed. I was inland now, in calm, settled country. Sarah reappeared, perfectly on cue, holding 2 glasses of water. She handed one to me. Ready to go soon? We have that early site visit tomorrow. Yes, almost, I said, taking the glass. Sarah offered a warm, completely genuine smile to Chloe. Lovely to meet you. The bride is gorgeous, isn't she? Chloe could only stare, utterly defeated by the normalcy, by the seamless team we presented, by the concrete evidence of a life that had continued, flourished, and completely forgotten her. I gave Chloe one last, professional nod. Take care of yourself. Then I turned, offered my arm to Sarah, and we walked away, joining the group on the dance floor to say our final goodbyes to Julia. We laughed at something the groom said. I meant the laugh. As we walked to the car under a canopy of twinkle lights, I didn't look back. I knew what was behind me. A memory. A lesson. A ghost at a wedding. The future, clean and quiet and entirely my own, was ahead. And I was finally, unequivocally, home. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.